Welcome back, sir.
Thank you.
Uh, I'm on the left. You're on the right, more or less. I think we can kind of generalize like that. And I am not trying to play gotcha here with you. I hope you appreciate that or realize that. This is not an attempt to do that. What I'm trying to find out, I hear many of us on the left are very outspoken in condemning Rahm Emanuel and Barack Obama, in applauding them for releasing these documents, although they really had no choice. The ACLU was going to release them anyway, and condemning them for saying, okay, we're just going to give all these people a pass on what may be crimes. Now, the purpose of a court is to determine whether or not they're crimes, but let's say that they may be crimes. And I know that you have repudiated many parts of the Bush invasion and occupation of Iraq. For example, you said that you were in favor of the invasion, but that you didn't think we needed to go to Baghdad, and you were opposed to the occupation, or at least the way it was handled. I don't mean to be putting words in your mouth. Feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. I'm just wondering what your thoughts are, and broadly speaking, what you think your colleagues, whether they be those who self-identify themselves as neoconservatives or conservatives, think about the idea that we may be establishing a precedent for the world that when nations take Americans as hostages, or if nations arrest Americans, that they may then use these techniques on them with impunity.
Well, I don't think techniques of the kind that are described here should be used with impunity, certainly not. Well, what I've tried to focus on, because it seems to me the most immediate issue facing the administration and the controversy around Obama's decision, is the issue of whether it is fair to go back now and prosecute people who believed they were operating within the guidelines laid down by the administration. And if you take the position that you can go back and say, well, these guidelines are no longer the prevailing view, and therefore we will retroactively prosecute you for violating them, that seems to me unfair to those individuals. However,
well, that was the position of the Nuremberg tribunals. Articles 7 and 8 specifically say, legal authorization is no excuse.
Well, I'm sorry. I think that's...
Do you disagree with the prosecutions at Nuremberg?
I think there is no reasonable comparison between the mass murder for which the Nuremberg defendants were tried and waterboarding, however reprehensible waterboarding may be. And I think it goes too far to compare the millions of people murdered by the Nazis with what was done in this case.
Yeah, well, that's not an unreasonable point, but it still doesn't answer the question. Because there were a number of people in this administration who quit, who said, I'm sorry, this is illegal, I'm leaving, and some of them publicly, many of them privately. Are you suggesting that if somebody commits a crime that is authorized by the President of the United States or by somebody working for the President of the United States, that they should not be prosecuted?
The question you're putting makes it sound as though the approval was arbitrary. When you read that memo, 50 pages, you may or may not agree with every point in the memo, but it certainly isn't arbitrary.
Well, in one of the footnotes, the memo itself acknowledges that waterboarding is torture. And it refers to it as torture.
Well,
I believe it's the footnote on page 7. I don't have it in front of me.
I may have missed that footnote, but
But broadly, are you suggesting that you and or your peers are of the position that we should just that the Obama administration is right in simply saying, okay, we're going to put this behind us?
I think they are right. By the way, I don't speak for my peers. I speak only for myself.
Okay. Well, speaking for yourself. And
yes, I think they are, because I believe it would be unfair to people who thought there was appropriate legal authorization for what they were doing.
So what about the people who created the authorization?
And prosecute them. And if you do that, by the way, apart from the unfairness to the individuals involved, you create a situation in which people will never know whether they are justified in acting on instructions they're given
But that is the situation right now. If somebody is told by, if a police officer is told by his sergeant or his commander to kill that person in custody, they say, no, I know that's illegal, I'm not going to do it.
Yes, of course.
I mean, that's the law.
If you know something to be illegal, that's an entirely different situation.
CIA officers, I think, are well trained in this, are they not?
Well, they obviously didn't believe.
Okay, so if you don't think that the CIA officers should be prosecuted, do you think that Jay Bybee and John Yoo should be, at the very least, tried in a court of law and let somebody determine whether or not they committed a crime in writing these memos?
Well, I think when you read the memo, it is clear to me that they believed. You may not be convinced, and some others may not be convinced. I may not even be convinced, but they believed that they were correctly and properly interpreted.
So you do not think that a court of law should determine whether or not they were wrong in doing that?
No, I think if you start second-guessing the legal opinions of...
I get it. We have to wrap it up. I'm sorry. Richard Pearle, CEI.org, or AEI.org.
Listening to the Thom